Hey guys, welcome back to Fancy Tip. Max with you guys this week to talk about some players who had career years last season and which one of those guys are more likely to reciprocate the numbers that they achieved. The six forwards we'll be talking about were in the top 92 for points last season and definitely exceeded expectations. The first player is Nick Suzuki, who literally had career highs in everything but goals. He finished above a point per game with 30 goals and 59 assists, good for 89 points, and also good for 13th across the league. 12 more points than the year before and 23 more points than 2 seasons ago. In 6 years since being in the NHL, he's never had less points than the year before. He's been on a constant progression and he hasn't missed a game since his rookie season. What's not to like about a guy who doesn't miss any time? If you compare him to other centers around his ADP, there's only Natush that I like more and maybe Barkov, but these three guys should definitely be going over Macklin Celebrini, who currently has an ADP of 45 and is being drafted earlier. It's definitely safer to take Suzuki over him. Another positive is he only had 8 penalty minutes last season, which means he's on the ice for above 20 minutes per game on both the PP1 and on the PK. To me, Suzuki is a stud, and trend suggests that he will break 90 points this season. Another guy who had an amazing season was Brandon Hagel, who compiled 35 goals and 65 assists, good for 90 points and career highs across the board. I think Hagel is a great player and should have a good season again. He was excellent last year with his shot volume. That's a guy who shoots a lot of puck. Now, Braden Point and Nikita Kucherov will be on the first line, and Tampa Bay has a lot of option on who to plug with them. They have guys like Brandon Nagel, Jake Gensel, Oliver Bjorkstrand, and Connor Geekie, who's also in the conversation for top 6 minutes. If Brandon Hagel was to play in the middle six like Daily Faceoff suggests, I think his point total should be closer to 70 points this year. It'll be hard to get 7 shorthanded points again, and a spot on the first power play isn't guaranteed for him. To me, Hagel is not a bad option, but there's guys like Wyatt Johnston, Eliot Pettersson, and even Drake Batterson, who, in my opinion, have much higher ceilings and are getting drafted behind Hagel. Dylan Holloway is definitely a stud. I don't have to sell him to you guys. He really fits in the St. Louis style. He will get you a bunch of shots, will get you a bunch of hits, normally above 2 per game for each category. Only 13 of his 63 points came from the man advantage last season, and his PP1 spot is mostly assured for this season. If he can have like 5 or 10 more power play points, he could end up getting above 70 points this season. I don't see him regressing at 5-on-5 with his playstyle and playtime. I'm drafting him ahead of Nikolai Ehlers, Lucas Raymond, and Travis Konechny around his ADP in Cats leagues. Kirill Marchenko was on fire at the beginning of last season and was arguably playing on one of the best lines in hockey at the time. He had 11 points in 9 games in October and followed it up with 13 in 12 in November. For 5-on-5 play, when he was on the line with Monahan and Shinnikov, they outscored opponents 9-3. When he was with Monahan and Voronkov, the line outscored opponents 29-12. When Sean Monahan missed time, the duo of Voronkov and Marchenko outscored opponents 21-10. He finished the year with 31 goals and 72 points, despite Columbus having a bunch of injuries all year long. I like him around his ADP, especially in points leagues. I think he's a stud who won't be getting less than 70 points per season for the next few years. He has 40 goal potential for sure. Protas had an incredible season with 30 goals and 36 assists in 76 games. That's 24 more goals and 13 more assists in 2 less games than his rookie year the year before. and he was a phenomenal plus 40 last season. All that with no power play time. I don't expect things to change in Washington. There's simply no room on the power play for him. What I do expect to change is his boosted shooting percentage, which is at 21.1%. This with no power play time is a massive red flag. I think he gets closer to 50 points, and I wouldn't be surprised to see Ryan Leonard eventually cut into his top 6 role. What's really sad is that he's a gentle giant who doesn't hit, and with an ADP of 131, it's a huge risk. I think he gets fantasy fraud checked, and last season was a fluke. His teammate Dylan Strome is going 2 spots below Protas, which is weird because his spot on the top line with Ovechkin is way more assured, and he's excellent on the power play. Last season he had 31 power play points. With that being said, as far as centers go, I wouldn't draft him ahead of any centers who have a better ADP. I think he's well ranked for points leagues, but I also think we see a very, very slight regression, and he doesn't hit a point per game this season, but closer to 70 points. The last forward is Kent Johnson, who broke out with 57 points in 68 games after a 16 points in 42 game season in 2023-2024, with a trip to the AHL. Before last season, I used to sometimes forget that he was actually a top 5 overall pick. There's no denying it now, he was a good pick. For points league, I draft him ahead of guys like Stankoven, Will Quealy, and Mason McTavish, who are all currently being drafted before him. I expect 65 to 70 points in his first full season without injury. He will be in the top 6 and will play PP1 if last year was any indication on what's to come. For Cats leagues, I believe you can fade him a round or 2 past his ADP, but overall, he's a stud. Let's take a look at the few defensemen now. Okay, coming from a Canadiens fan, it feels horrible to even talk about Hutson in a negative way because there's not much to hate about as a fan of the team. But for fantasy purpose, however, his ADP of 45 is way too low. He's the 8th defenseman being drafted right now in front of Adam Fox and Jacob Chychrun. For Cats League, I would even draft Sergachev, Mackenzie Weegar, and even Seth Jones in some formats. I know this might not be a popular opinion with you guys, but Hutson's shot volume is just too low right now, and he's gonna need another season nearing 60 assists if he wants to get the same results as last year. He had 91 shots, so I don't expect him to get more than 8 goals in his sophomore season. In a few years, he might get 15 goals and he might get close to 100 points or even past 100 points. But right now, we should be patient with him and he has to learn to shoot more often. On top of that, he only had 40 hits in 82 games and 1.5 blocks per game. I think fantasy managers will grow frustrated, especially if he doesn't produce offensively right away or if he has a little cold patch. He's the real deal. He's an absolute stud in the long term, but he's definitely a fluke at his ADP, in my opinion. Jake Sanderson is another guy being drafted behind Lane Hutson with way better peripherals. He already has 485 shots and 449 blocks in 236 games after 3 seasons in the league. Sure, PP1 quarterback who had 30 power play points and 11 goals last year, 4 of which were game-winning goals. That's 2 seasons in a row with double-digit goals. To me, Jake Sanderson is a stud and quietly becoming one of the elite defensemen across the league. Super complete guy. I think his ADP is right. I wouldn't draft him in front of any defenseman that's currently being drafted ahead of him, except maybe for Lane Hutson in Cats leagues and some points leagues. But there's also nobody on D being drafted behind his ADP that I would draft ahead of him. So Jake Sanderson is a stud and he's well ranked right now. Jackson Lacombe had 17 points in 71 games in his rookie year. Last season, he had 14 when December came around, playing 18 minutes per night. Around that time, Cam Fowler got traded and his ice time went up dramatically. By 2025, he was playing about 24 minutes a night regularly, and his production didn't stop. He finished the year with 43 points in 75 games, right outside the top 20 for blue liners across the league. I had to go watch some footage, and I'm really impressed as I've only seen him a handful of times last season. And from what I've seen this week, this guy can read plays like there's no tomorrow. And he's not shy to support the forwards on the rush. Might sound crazy, and I hope some of you guys will remember this, but I think this guy has 20 goal potential. Maybe not this year, but eventually. And similar production to a guy like Brandon Montour, for example. Daily Faceoff projects Zellweger to start the year on PP1, but I disagree. I think Lacombe will get the spot when preseason is over. I would definitely draft him over Nikishin as he's unproven, and Luke Hughes, who has to deal with Doggy Hamilton. And both of these guys are being drafted over Lacombe right now. He's definitely a guy I've changed my mind about over the last few weeks. And to me, he's a stud with a really high ceiling going under the radar. And that's it for today, guys. Thank you for making it this far. These were my flukes and studs for the upcoming season. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. If you like this video, please click the like button, subscribe to our channel so you get notified when we release more fantasy hockey advice and more fantasy hockey insights. I'll see you guys soon.